Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry for the suspense. Thank you very much to the Midtown Scholar for having me here and for the crew for setting us up so well. This, I don't know if you could call what I do music. I don't know if you could call what I sing songs. In reality, I would say it's more like poems to a simple accompaniment. Of course, maybe we're just playing with the word song, but it might not even be poetry either. I'll start you off with a very simple, just poem, no music. Gather round, he yelled, to both children and the old, and promised them that presently a story would be told about a different time, about a different place, of a heroic knight and prince's pretty face, and dragons from the east and behemoths from the south. Open up your ears, he yelled, and also shut your mouths. He yelled about a wise man locked into a cage, who guessed that sages didn't mind, and wasn't he a sage? But if he were a wise man, were he really wise, he wouldn't give a damn at all for other people's minds. But wouldn't he? For after all, not of his own will was he cast into this cage and forced to swallow pills. It was they that locked him up in here to rot inside this cage. They who called him schizophrenic and mentally deranged. Let me out, he shouted. Let me out of here. Damn it, shut your mouths, he yelled, and open up your ears. Two men dressed in white, and both of them called nurse, came and then sedated him and told us to disperse. We'd gathered round, the rest of us, to listen to his tale, and some of us sat silent, while others sobbed and wailed. No matter, we can wait it out. Most of us, at least. We'd like to hear about the knight and princess from the east. We'd like to hear about the pills and wise men from the south, and sit with our ears tightly shut to open up our mouths. Thankfully, that's not about me. It's just... I might warn some of you that some of this is a little bit graphic because some of the songs are songs about wars and such topics. So perhaps if you get queasy or if you'd like to close the ears of little children, I will hold nothing against you. This song, I started writing it about Stalingrad, about crossing the Volga to take the city from the Germans who had occupied it at that point in the war. In principle, it could be again about any amphibious assault, about D-Day, for example. Of course, there's a calque here of the German word Flugzeug, flight gear, which means it's an airplane. So I'm not sure there were really airplanes in the D-Day defenses, but imagine what you would.
Swim, those of you here who wish to live. A flight gear of the devils in the heavens had stitched our boat into a sieve. Who wish to live apparently not each, and every single man upon that boat. Some drowned right there as if to shun the beach, some later to wash up on the coast. We swam, we drowned while swimming, as our comrades simply drowned instead. There were few of us, I guess, who kept on wishing place when did we have such a wish as those who did, but those who gave up swimming, intestines floating up like fish, winding in that colloid like a ribbon. But those of us who live continue living. We cling involuntarily to life. For those of us who wish to keep on living, for those who wish to live but died, for those of us who wish to live but didn't, for those who wish to live but died.
Thank you. Now we'll try something a little bit calmer. My great-grandfather, my father's grandfather, lost his leg in the Second World War. I know very little about him because he died before I was born. I only know the stories that I was told by my father. But apparently, the state-issued prostheses bothered him. They gave him blisters on his stump, I guess. So he carved his own wooden legs. This story has nothing to do with that. He's the inspiration for the main character, or one of the main characters behind it. So. The old man sat puffing at his pipe. He had one leg and was missing neither eye. Like a child over ants, the sun stood and baked him and the youth who sat beside. Beside them sat a box of salt, the crystals all iodized and clean. But it wasn't kept for eating. Well, it was kept for eating too, but the focus here isn't their cuisine. Somewhere between one puff and the next, the old man spoke, having squinted either eye, with a tilt to his head, and one eyebrow raised, hand on his pipe and elbow on his thigh. He said, "Never be afraid of pain. One day you die, life is everything before. So always pour salt into your wounds, lest you forget, let them sting a little more. Always pour salt into your wounds, lest you forget, let them sting a little more." The youth held open his left hand. The old man poured some salt out with his right. And the youth, having filled all his last lungs with air, covered every inch of red with white. Learn to let it hurt until it tickles. Let it reach into every tooth and hair. Let it grow every vein. Let it trigger a laugh. Leave not one nerve, not even one nerve spare. Remember never be afraid of pain. One day you die, life is everything before. So always pour salt into your wounds, lest you forget, let them sting a little more. Always pour salt into your wounds, lest you forget, let them sting a little more. It stung, more than that it burned. A tear went halfway to one eye, but that's as far as it got. The youth began to laugh. The old man's face hid a gentle smile. Sometime later that old man disappeared, and the youth became the old man in his place. And in his place there came other future old men, by whom one day he shall be replaced. He tells them never be afraid of pain. One day you die, life is everything before. So always pour salt into your wounds, them sting a little more. Always pour salt into your wounds, lest you forget, let them sting a little more. Always pour salt into your wounds, lest you forget, let them sting a little more. In principle, I don't need those papers. But so here, on a Tuesday morning, ironically enough, I woke up. This song has really nothing to do about Tuesday, but it was after a dream. I think it was somewhere out in the Old West or something like that, where they have the steam trains and that kind of thing, and the trains only come every once in a while. I don't know, rarely. And somebody was saying that something like you want to be on the Wednesday train, or you want to be on the Friday train, but you're standing on the Wednesday train. But they said it in this way, that maybe you're on Wednesday to be Friday. And somebody answered him in that dream as a joke, maybe you're on 7 to be 9. And for some reason, everybody in the dream thought it was uproariously funny. And I woke up almost laughing. And then, the phrase was nonsensical. So I had to later rationalize it, but it sounded good. Maybe you're on Wednesday to be Friday, maybe you're on 7 to be 9. So I rationalized it into sort of, you go into work on Wednesday, and you really want it to be Friday. You come in at 7, you really want it to be the coffee break time, something like that. But in any case. Maybe you're on Wednesday to be Friday. Maybe you're on 7 to be 9. Maybe you're a cow or an engine. We're stuck loading wagons in this mine. Maybe you're a cow or an engine. We're stuck loading wagons in this mine. Oh, sometimes I tell you, it gets mighty lonesome. Sometimes you ask who you are and why. Sometimes I guess you win some, sometimes you don't some. Yesterday our shaft canary died. Sometimes I guess you win some, sometimes you don't some. Yesterday our shaft canary died. Shaft canary, shaft canary, shaft canary. Parakeet. Just another ordinary day for me. We ain't got ourselves no more canaries. And everything we own, we got unscrewed. The company store owns up for suitful bodies. And so today we make our daily trip. The company store owns up for suitful bodies. And so today we make our daily trip. Well, sometimes I guess you win some, sometimes you don't some. And having already loaded several tons. I wonder if we've become the shaft canaries, and haven't become them, have we lost or won? I wonder if we've become the shaft canaries, and haven't become them, have we lost or won? Shaft canary, shaft canary, shaft canary. No more tweets, just another ordinary, ordinary day for me. Na-na-na-ra-ra, na-ra-na-ra, na-ra-na-ra, na-na-ra. Well, sometimes I guess you win some, sometimes you don't some. Yesterday our shaft canary died. Sometimes I guess you win some, sometimes you don't some. Just another death in this mine. Just another death in this mine. Just another death in this mine. Here I'll sing you another piece about the Second World War. This is the story of one of my father's friends told me the story. It was the story of his father, actually, who fought in the Second World War in Belarus. And in Belarus, roughly 1/4 of the population, well, died during the war. It was a particularly hard-hit area, and you know, there were a lot of difficult, I guess, what one might call moral questions that arose there. So this is basically about that. And perhaps a little bit about the sort of human perspective people retain while sometimes doing things that we might even classify as a little bit inhumane or inhuman. But at times we do things because we need to. You can call it convenience if you like, but we do them because we need to. And that's the only way to say that we like. There was a commander once, a German, serving in the fascist forces in the war. A blonde man with the bluest eyes, a smart man, a kind man too, I'm sure. We raided, and this was Belarus. We raided that log cabin that they took, and we marched them out, single file. We lined them up like pages in a book. We filed them in a line, one by the other. We pointed toward them with our rifle sights, and our hands let forth a quick short volley. A quick short volley. That was all. That was enough. He lay there, the commander, the smart man, the kind man, with the bluest eyes. I'm sure he could understand why we did it. understood why he died. I don't know, but I imagine his wife waits for him with schnapps and bread of rye. His children are waiting for their father, the kind man, the smart man with blue eyes. He has a slight graying by his temple, now also a deep redness that will turn to black. The blue-eyed man, the smart and kind man, the man who is never coming back. Thank you. This next piece started out I wanted to make a translation of a song by Vladimir Vysotsky. Although early on into the process of, well, not necessarily translation, but perhaps some sort of an interpretation of it. But early on I understood that mine was going in the completely opposite direction. The original song was about the situation where, which a lot of men faced coming back from the Second World War to their houses and their wives, where they discovered it was no longer their house, it was no longer their wife. But obviously that I couldn't write something that sad, so. After several long years of martial or Martian excursions, and the dogs I could see didn't recognize me. They barked, straining their throats and their purses, and the flowers hung strangely in pots on the porch, and the windows glared at me meanly, and the ants in their mounds, like the neighborhood house, seemed to find my presence unseemly. And I knocked on the door before having the thought that this house was mine own possession. And I marched through the door, and even the floor creaked in wood and warped apprehension. And I came to the table and smiled at my wife, and she gasped and moved back in horror behind some strange man with a pen in his hand, who's spooning some eggs with a fork or a knife from the pan onto his plate. And he stopped then in mid-motion, and he raised up his gaze, sitting still at my place to appraise Maria's commotion. My blood, though now cold on account of my age and no longer warming my knuckles, boiled in my veins, and my belt like a chain I prepare till I shout with my buckle, I see how it is. I growled at my wife and I scowled at the man at my table. He had moved all my stuff, he had stolen my love, and now I vowed to make him disabled. And Maria cried out, please leave us alone. And I found her voice unfamiliar, and I looked at her eyes, and to my surprise, I realized it wasn't Maria. Good heavens, I thought, and I scratched at my head. The conclusion need not be belabored. This house wasn't mine. It seemed rather that I had won it to some neighbors. Thank you.